We went through loss. Many of us went home, and then now many of us are transitioning back to work. So with that, I just want to read this, and please sit and absorb this for a moment. You're so hard on yourself. Take a moment, sit back, marvel at your life, at the grief that has softened you, at the heartache that has wizened you, at the suffering that has strengthened you. And despite everything, you still grow. All of you are here today because you want to grow. I believe that. And again, all of you, because of that, are my people. I love this. I found it during COVID on, I believe it was Facebook. And I'm sharing it with you because I want this message to be for all of you. And I also want it to be for my 9-year-old self. As I stand up on this stage and realize that so much of my life has been around growing up from her. Because so much of my unworthiness that I've felt in my life, no matter what success I've had, oftentimes I'll revert to this little girl, this little ugly Patty Purple, that has overcome so much. And today I want to help you think about what you can overcome as you center your life, as you find balance, integration, and joy in living well. So I've often taught, and positive psychology has been, ever since I discovered it, sort of my toolkit. I grew up in North Dakota to a loving family that suffered from mental illness and alcoholism. I grew up in a place where overcompensating, becoming type A, overachieving was my way of controlling my environment. And I controlled my environment with lots of tools, including nature, movement, forgiveness. Self-compassion is one of my newer ones that I just love because I believe all of us need that in order to feel fully whole. Of course, gratitude, strengths. Those who know me know I love the Gallup Strengths Finder and via character strengths, anything to help us get to know who we are at our core. And my newest one, and the one I'm going to talk to you a little bit about today and share my story, is around neuroliteracy, which may be a term you haven't heard, and I'm hoping by the end of the day you will embrace it and start wanting to live that with me. One of the tools I discovered when I was speaking at a Hero conference, actually I think I was just attending that year, was a video. And that video has stuck with me for years because it keeps coming back and it's reinforced by the new tools and techniques I use for living well. Every time I find a tool and it fits into this paradigm, I embrace it further. And so I want to share this video with you.
By the Conscious Leadership Group. Find them on the web at www.conscious.is. Animation by Graham Franks, www.grahamfranks.com. One question that conscious leaders ask themselves over and over is, where am I? To support leaders in locating themselves as they ask the question, where am I? We offer this tool, a line, a simple black line. At any moment, all leaders and all people are either above the line or below the line. Our location describes how we're being with what is occurring in our life right now. If we're above the line, we are open, curious, and committed to learning. If we are below the line, we are closed, defensive, and committed to being right. Stop right now and simply ask yourself, where am I? In this now moment, am I above the line or below the line? Typically, when people are below the line, they believe certain things about the world. For example, they believe there is not enough. It could be that there's not enough money, or time, or space, or energy, or love. People below the line also believe that their story about the situation is right. People below the line also believe that there is a threat out there. Something or someone is threatening their desire for approval, control, or security. And people below the line see the situation as serious. The deeper below the line they are, the more serious things look. People below the line tend to behave certain ways as well. They tend to cling to an opinion, find fault and blame, gossip, explain, rationalize and justify, get overwhelmed, and avoid conflict or pursue conflict for the sake of winning. When people are above the line, They believe that learning and growing are more important than being right. They believe that all people and circumstances are their allies, here for their growth. They believe that from a distance, almost everything is funny. People above the line live in curiosity, listen deeply, speak unarguably, question all their beliefs, and live a life of play. Now, knowing what you know about being above or below the line, where are you? One thing to know as you consider this question: we are hardwired to go below the line. Literally, our brain is programmed to perceive threat, and when it does, a chemical cocktail courses through our veins, and we go below the line. This reaction was designed to help us survive in the presence of a real threat to our physical survival. An issue for modern-day leaders is that often our brains can't tell the difference between a threat to our physical survival and a threat to our ego or identity. We react and get defensive when we experience a threat to our ego. So in many ways, being below the line is natural and normal. But when we are below the line, we're not in a state, literally brain state, of high creativity, collaboration, innovation, and relational connection. We're simply trying to survive. Leaders today can't thrive if they're in survival mode. So the first activity of conscious leadership is location, location, location. In this now moment, where am I? Telling ourselves and others the truth about our current location begins the great conversation.
How many of you have seen that video before? A few of you. How many of you would like to live above the line with me? Stand up if you'd like to live above it. Let's go ahead and rise up and show me. And it's okay if you don't want to. I'm hoping by the end of the presentation you'll stand up and want to join me to build a community where we all live above the line. Because whether you wish to live above the line or you're not there yet, it's the place where magic happens. Would you please turn to somebody while you're standing, and I want you to share 3 words that describe you at your best. When you're above the line, when you're feeling energized and whole and happy, what are 3 words? Do not be shy. I want to hear some of that good energy out there. So go ahead and turn to somebody and share those 3 words that describe you at your best. Welcome back. Please write those 3 words down that describe you at your best, because I want you to remember those throughout this presentation, because that is who you are. You at your best, above the line, is at your core who you are. What I've learned over my journey over the last 3 years is that when I'm above the line, when I'm centered, when I'm at my very best, that is who I am. I can then accept my past because it is a gift that has brought me to my present, Every single thing, every interaction, every difficult time is a gift that brought me to my present. And when I'm standing in that place of centeredness, I feel peace in my presence, in the present moment, and I have joy for everything that can come in the future, because I know I can push past it and do my best in that place. And that is my hope for each of you. When we're above the line, as HeartMath will share, our heart rate variability is smooth in a time of appreciation. In frustration, it's not. So it gives us benefit when we're above the line, where we're in that place of gratitude, of curiosity in working with people. I've tried to figure out a time, other than a saber-toothed tiger or actual physical assault of any kind, that I would want to be below the line. And I'm still trying to find a place where I would prefer to be below the line rather than above the line. When we're above the line, we help others flourish. I love the research by Rob Baker, I'm going to get his first name wrong, but Baker and Kim Cameron, who talk about positive energizers. Positive energizers, by definition, are above the line. Now, I've done, taken their work and added the above the line and below the line. But those are the people that help others flourish. And I want to believe all of us here in this room as wellness professionals are seeking that and wanting to help our clients, our employees, our colleagues to also flourish and be above the line. When we're above the line, we are trustworthy and we have integrity. We're dependable, helpful, and energized, genuine and authentic, all those things that I want to be. And when I want to be that, I tend to surround myself with other people that want to be in that same place. De-energizers, on the other hand, which we all fall into this, and I want to make sure I say I am not perfect and I go below the line plenty, but I'm now aware of it in a way that is radically different than it was 3 years ago. When I'm below the line, I see mostly obstacles. It looks dire. I can be inflexible in my thinking, all of these things that I don't want to be and don't serve me. No matter what is happening, no matter how difficult the situation, I promise you that being above the line is absolutely the best place to be. The key findings, again, by Baker and Kim Cameron as well, is those who positively energize others are higher performers because they lift up others and they all rise together. Positive energizers tend to enhance the performance of others. So imagine we're all above the line and we're helping others be above the line. And we also are connected, we all perform better when we're connected to high energizers. And organizations are higher performers when they contain a lot of positive energizers. So again, by definition, I believe those positive energizers are above the line. And I like to keep things really, really simple. And so those little candy kisses on your tray, on your thing, Liz, thank you so much for helping me put these little bags together. Enjoy those candy kisses. There's one for each of your three defining things of you at your best. Savor them, remember them, and know that that is you. So I do my very best. As you can tell, I'm passionate about living above the line. I'm passionate about living above the line and helping others to do the same, to see how sometimes it can be so simple to just switch gears a little bit, think of a couple thoughts of gratitude. That's my very favorite way to give it above the line, is a little bit of gratitude, exercise, time in nature, all those things in my toolkit. But in 2019, my world started to crumble. In 2019, my beloved Papa died. It was very hard. I wasn't expecting it. He was only 78 years old, but he had had a lot of struggle with alcoholism until his very last day. 4 days after the funeral, my back went out. I couldn't walk for over a week, maybe longer. The rest of the year, does anyone remember Mrs. Swiggins from Carol Burnett Show? This was me, walking literally for 9 months until I finally caved and got back surgery. I had one metal plate put in my back and 4 screws. And of course, we know what happened soon after January of 2020. I had my surgery, went on 6 weeks of disability, and then COVID hit. So I went back to work and then immediately came back home. I had a lot of time on my hands. I had a lot of time from the 6 weeks off, and I found myself needing to do something different. I couldn't go to physical therapy because of COVID, so I started walking. I started walking on our property. Now, I'd been at our property for 19 years. 19 years I'd lived on this piece of land, but I had never ventured below the deer fencing. It was crazy out there. 12-foot high pieces of Scotch broom. If any of you know what Scotch or French broom is, you know my pain. And it covered everything, so you literally couldn't pass through. There were no trails, there were no open areas. But I started walking, and I started exploring. And I started pulling those Scotch broom to make ways to explore. And I discovered something magical. That I could leave my home and find redwoods in 10 minutes. Again, I had lived there for 19 years and didn't realize this gift that I had in my backyard. What I did is start exploring. Now, this is a topographical map of the land I'm talking about. Where I was just standing at the top of that waterfall is right there. You can see the dark areas are the depth, the white areas are the light. So as it reflects on, anything that's flat is white, anything that's a deep ravine is dark. So that's where I stood, where that little star is. My house was way up there. Everything flows to the Pacific Ocean. And this is what I call the cauldron of transformation. So if any of you have ever read Sharon Blackie's book, it's a call out to her. It's a beautiful book to read. And so this is the area I went to. Now, before I go to the rest of it, I want you to take your little bag, and if you're in the back and you don't have a little white bag, please come find one. There's some up front. I want you to take out the little leaf that's inside of it. I'll give you a moment to do that. Take out that bay leaf. Get yourself settled a little bit in your chair. The picture on the screen is one of my favorite bay leaf trees. It's a bay laurel. I want you to take that leaf and I want you to crunch it up. Go ahead and bring it in your fingers and break it up and take a smell. That is a smell of the forest in the Santa Cruz Mountains. Sit for a moment and listen to the sounds. And if you would, for a moment, close your eyes and imagine that you're here with me in the Santa Cruz Mountains with the smells and the sounds. And while you're sitting here for this moment, I want you to, if you're comfortable, put your hand to your heart and consider those 3 words that describe you at your best. I want you to feel what it's like to sit in the forest, to smell the bay leaves, and to hear these sounds. That is a gift you can give yourself at any moment. Because remember, our bodies, our minds do not know the difference between something that actually happened and something we imagine. So at any given moment, you can bring yourself into the present moment and enjoy the forest. So this is where my story really begins. I started going out in the forest, started clearing some land, started finding paths, and started looking at my life in a different way. I love the forest. And I started clearing the Scotch broom, the French broom, and you can see how big it is and how gnarly it is. But with every weed I pulled, I started thinking about the thoughts that I was also having, realizing that my mind never shut up. How many of you have that problem? Like, it's a running dialogue. Wow, that's an interesting speaker. And wow, there's lines over here, and there's a floor. And I don't know where they had that over there. And I know her, and I don't. It's a little crazy. And I realized that when I was pulling the weeds and being in nature, and this is one of the biggest secrets I know, nature has no judgment. There is no judgment. There is no prettier tree than another tree in my mind. When I'm in nature, there is no judgment whatsoever. So my mind was able to quiet. I could listen to the birds. I could listen to the water in the background. And I could find inside my soul my true essence. every weed I pulled, and it is amazing to pull those weeds. Anybody ever want to come? I've got plenty. There's plenty more. There is an entire forest out there. And it is the most therapeutic thing I have ever done because my body was moving, my mind was clear, and all I could feel was love for the forest, for the animals, and everything else. Over the last 3 years, I have put in over 400 steps that allow me to go with ease down onto the property, down into the cauldron, down into this place that I find is so precious. I cleared spaces. This is one of my favorite spaces. And I cleared it and I created a pond from the well that drips from that spot. And in that well, in that spot, in that sanctuary for both animals and people, the animals started to come. These are just a few of the precious animals that live on and around our property. I had the deer. I also had a possum. I have skunks. I have coyote. I have mountain lion. And they're all in the trail cam. I promise you, I don't get close to them. It's down the hill quite a ways. But I love having the trail cam on to see them. And my most glorious is Glenda. That is Glenda. Now, I don't know if Glenda's a girl or a boy, but she seems to be a Glenda. I also discovered a love for hummingbirds. Again, I'd been there 19 years, and I never had a hummingbird feeder because I didn't have time. Finally, I had time. Now, fast forward, I now have 4 hummingbird feeders. My husband thinks I'm nuts, and I go through 8 to 10 cups of sugar water a day. But I wouldn't trade it for anything, because it brings me that moment of marvel. I love these hummingbirds. And as I went into these states of awe, all of these things that positive psychology asks us to do, I continued to read books. And these are some of the books that stood out to me on my journey, especially Wayne Dyer's Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life. It is phenomenal. It is based on the Tao Te Ching, which I also read in its entirety in a translation by Stephen Mitchell. And How to Change Your Mind by Michael Pollan was another one that I found fascinating. And in all transparency, yes, I did some plant medicine, and it was awesome. So with that, I contemplated my life, I contemplated my thoughts. I got really, really curious about what life could be if I could just stay above the line more often. But I couldn't figure out how to stay up there because I kept getting sucked back down. The judgment, the not enough, the unworthiness kept sucking me under. The forest, I was great. No people, nothing that could upset me. I was good. But that's not the way life is. So I wanted to find a solution to that. My daily reminders became, and it's one of the reasons I was pretty astounded when 33 days ago, Ryan and Jessica asked me to be on this stage because I wasn't intending on this. I had a daily reminders, and I've taught a little bit, but it was all around RISE. And my RISE stands for Recognize Your Value. Every morning I would wake up and I would take my time to do my version of Qigong, which I'm sure my mentor Mimi would say is not Qigong, but it's my version of Qigong and I love it. And so I do it every morning with a little bit of meditation, and I stay and I recognize my value. And when I can recognize my value, it is easy to see the value in every other living being. And that is a gift. That I could inventory my strengths and my areas of opportunity, to see what the day held, to value what it is that I do well, and be able to express that. That I can select my mindset, knowing that I am the writer, the director, and the leading lady of the play that is my life. And play is a specific word I like because it is a play that is my life. It's above the line, and I want it to be one of play. And last and not least, to enjoy sharing my gifts. I've been in a place of burnout. And usually when I get burned out, I just go to another position and I start over and I get to be creative again and I get to do my next thing. And enjoying to share your gifts is the best way to do it. But I had to go through all these other pieces first so that I could set the boundaries. I could recognize my value. And when you recognize your value, you can set the boundaries you need to be your best self. And when you inventory your strengths and areas of opportunity, you're very real about who you are, what you do well, and what you really need to surround yourself with somebody else that can do that well for you. And all these things come together to lead a really beautiful life. So I kept wondering, if I know all the research, if I have all these amazing tools, why do I keep dropping below the line so often? Because it's not where I want to be. How many of you have trouble in dropping below the line? Pretty much everyone? Anybody that doesn't, because you should be up here speaking. Okay. So we all do. It's human nature. That happens. So I started getting really curious. Well, what if I could figure out what pulls me below the line? What is it that my husband does that triggers something, or an email, or what is it that's inside me? Because in all this reading I did, in the simplest terms, if something triggers me, it's inside me. It's not about someone else. It's not about someone else. It is what's inside you that is triggering it, because somebody else may not get triggered. I love the 4 agreements, and I probably should have contained this in this as well. But if you have never read the 4 agreements, it's awesome to not take things personally. What somebody else says or does has nothing to do with you. They're in their own pain. They're working through their own system. They're doing it as part of that thought process. As my luck would have it, and when I say luck, I say that when I am above the line, I'm incredibly lucky. The more I'm above the line, the more luck I feel. It just happens. Things fall together in the most beautiful way. And as luck would have it, as I'm pondering my operating system and wondering about my brain, I happen to have a call with Jack Groppel, completely unrelated to this, about a consulting role I was in. And I wanted to ask him about biometrics. 5 minutes into the conversation, he said, yeah, I have something else I think you're going to be interested in. And I was curious. And he started telling me about this company called Next. Now, keep in mind, I'd never heard of this company 45 days ago. Never heard about it, never thought about neuroplasticity, didn't know. But when he started sharing about this company that believes that everybody has untapped potential, I'm like, that's me. That's a message I want to share. He started telling me about the fact that everybody deserves these opportunities and everybody has these strengths. I had left my past organization when the VP of Organizational Development literally told me, we do not have time to focus on strengths. There's too many things to fix. I knew at that moment that was not the place for me, and I set out to change things. This was a company I thought I could get behind. Of course, their classes, their tools, increase happiness, do all these things, or I wouldn't be interested, because I want things that are going to bring me above the line, not below the line. I want to find the best tools to help other people do the same. But I'm still interested. It's doing the right things in the right order. Their data from their first 150 people that have gone through it showed 90% of the folks were able to accomplish their initial change. Yeah, that's good. But what really got me was the last piece. 85% of the people that have gone through this training are able to influence their reactions to upsetting events. That was interesting to me. Was that the missing link that could help me understand why those upsetting events dropped me below the line, instead of allowing me to stay above the line in curiosity and figure out what happened in that event and not get pulled into that negative spiral that happens, that negative downward spiral. Like anybody else, when we have things that are going well, when things are good, most things don't rub us the wrong way because we're flying on just happiness. But then somebody nicks our car or looks at us wrong or gives us a bad review or somehow influences in a negative way, we can drop below the line and stay there. So I was very curious that this was the missing piece, and I got very curious again about the brain, even though I'd never really thought about it. I knew neuroplasticity meant that if you got some damage, you could recover and those things, but I never thought about it in terms of our well-being and how magical it could be for us. So let's share this.
Here's a human brain. What are not shown in this image are neurons. The brain contains lots of neurons, billions and billions of them. There are more than 80 billion in most human brains. Neurons are cells that transmit and receive information via electrochemical signals. These signals are passed from neuron to neuron at the synapse of each cell, the area where two neurons meet. Each neuron has between 5,000 and 15,000 connections to other neurons. A group of neurons that fire together in a particular sequence is called a pattern. Neurons that fire together wire together. In other words, the more frequently two neurons activate in sequence, the more they are likely to wire together in patterns of activation. Every function of your brain is the result of patterns of neurons firing. These patterns firing in your brain both influence and are influenced by the way you experience life. These patterns play an enormous role in how we experience our day-to-day lives.
I knew this was true based on all the couple of years that I had been in the forest, thinking about my thoughts, thinking about my athletic career, thinking about how my mind changes things depending upon how I think about it. If I allow a small seed to be planted, for example, I'm married, I have a beautiful husband, and I've caught myself on a bad day going, oh, he's so lazy. But I have to pull myself back because the moment I let that seed grow, I will start looking for every indication and everything that he has possibly done that might indicate that he is the slightest bit lazy. And I will develop a persona of him that is that, and that's not who he is. That's my recreation of who he is. And so I don't allow myself to do that. That is the power of the brain, understanding that if we start to think in a way and plant a seed and let it grow of something negative, it will become a deep crevice in our mind and difficult to change, because that's the way the brain works. Neuroplasticity is the property of the brain to change its form, structure, and function through experience and activity across our lifespan. It's our ability to look at it, our brains, in a different way, to focus on those things that we want to ingrain as habits in our lives and let go of those things that aren't serving us. Oops. Neural literacy, on the other hand, is more of a newfound ability to understand how our brain works and to make it work better using our minds. It is a powerful thing, and the moment you realize that your thoughts, your feelings, your behaviors, and even your bodily sensations can be managed and changed and shifted by what happens right here. And I've come to realize that 100% of my happiness starts with me and how I look at the world. So in essence, and I took the first course, it's called Basic Neural Literacy Programming, and you all, by the way, have a gift certificate for it. When I met with Jack and then the CEO of the company, I said, look, I love this. I feel like you have been in my brain for the last 3 years, and that's a little creepy. Like, very creepy. I was a little creeped out because I thought, wow, this is the kind of stuff I've been asking for, but I never knew you could actually systematically figure it out by training and going through a 90-minute module. Now, it's not everything, but it's a lot. And I literally, I had to sit with it for a couple of days and think, how could this happen? That what I went through, what I spent 3 years pulling weeds, listening to books, building stairs, seeing the beauty, they canned in a 90-minute presentation, and I didn't even know it was happening. It was a little much, but such a blessing. So the premise is that all of our thoughts create those emotions. It is chemical. Our thoughts create these emotions and this chemical reaction in our brain that creates these bodily sensations and creates then behaviors. Those behaviors come from usually a place of, I want to relieve pain, so I'm going to do something to help me feel better. And an example of this is that I realized through this program, and again, I've been married for 13 years, and I love my husband, but I realized I wasn't treating him very well. And it was as simple as this. When Greg would get in a down mood, a sad mood, maybe his diabetes was causing him to be low energy, I was uncomfortable. I was uncomfortable because I was becoming again that little girl who felt unworthy. And I needed to feel better. I needed him to tell me everything was going to be okay, that he was happy in his life, that he loved me, that I was okay, that it was me. And when I realized that it was about me alleviating my bodily sensations of feeling unworthiness when he got in a bad mood, I shared that with him. And his reaction was palatable. He just went, wow, you have no idea how hard it is when I just want to have a down day and be left alone. And I realized at that moment that my need to control his emotions was really not a helpful thing. It was very counterproductive. He was really kind about it, but we had this aha moment of what I had been doing without ever understanding it. And it took going through this course to actually start to identify that feeling that I would start sinking. When he would get down, I would start sinking like, oh my gosh, he doesn't love me anymore. He's unhappy in our life. And he's, I'd go to those. How many of you have gone to those dark places? Make me feel better. Just raise your hand. Okay. All right. So those are all the things that I sort of went through in this systematic thing that just blew my mind. And so I started thinking about these patterns. And this pattern that I'm sharing with you, and I'm kind of laying it out here today, everyone. This feeling of unworthiness that went back to that ugly Patty Purple from when I was 9 years old. It was in that unworthiness that gave me these thoughts, I've done enough, I'm not enough, he doesn't love me anymore, he's going to leave me, he's unhappy, why always look at him, he's just sitting on the couch, he's not doing anything. And that feeling of unworthiness would come over, even though I'm 56 years old and I was still feeling this way. And that the sadness would come. My emotions would be the sadness, the anxiety, what if he leaves me? Have you ever gone down that little, path of what next and what if this happened? And that my throat would get tight, my stomach would get set, I would get just cringy and anxiety filled. And I thought through this and thought, wow. And I thought through it enough and went through the program and realized that I can identify that feeling in a split second now. The moment something happens and I get that body sensation, I don't wait for the thoughts to happen because the body sensation comes first. I can identify that body sensation and I can stop the thought before it happens. And that is powerful because that makes me able to stay above the line where I can be my best self. And to me, that is the best gift I can ever imagine, which meant that I no longer was going to badger him. Like literally badger him for my own approval, that I wasn't going to leave the situation, but to move forward. What I realized is these crevices in my brain, I have a choice. Those neurons that fire together, that wire together, they will fire together if you're above the line in productive patterns and you stay above the line and keep those productive patterns, just as likely as if you go below the line and stay in a place of defensiveness and blame and inflexibility, your brain will hardwire it and stay that way. We know people that are older, none of us, that are set in their ways. How many of you know somebody that's pretty negative and pretty below the line a lot? Okay. That was not a little 3-year-old child. That was probably not even a 16-year-old. That was probably not somebody. That was somebody that allowed negative emotions to dominate their lives for long enough that they stayed below the line for so long it became their personality. And we all know that person, and I want more than anything for this community to do things a little bit different, that we know that we can stay above the line with all these tools. We've got such a head start, and we can change the world with this by choosing to ingrain those things that keep us above the line and keep us looking at awe and at nature and at all that is beautiful. I can now, most of the time, be above the line and look down to what sucks me down below the line. I can look at those situations and think, oh, that's interesting. That is very interesting. In the past, I would have reacted this way. And now I can go, wow, I can get curious. And go, well, what if I react in a different way? In a different way when my husband gets in a down mood. And I just say, honey, I'm going to go to the forest for a couple hours, and I will be back. You text me if you need me. If you want me to cook some dinner, if you want something, you text me and I will be back, and I am here for you always. Now, I have to be a little careful with that because with all those hours I spent out on the hillside, my husband did start to wonder if I was meeting someone down there. I would literally be gone from sunrise to sunset exploring. At one point, for those of you who know the Santa Cruz Mountains, I left home Now, I did tell my husband I may do this, but I wasn't sure. And I walked for 2.5 hours down the creek towards the Pacific Ocean. I didn't see anybody for 2.5 hours. I had my clippers. I lost them somewhere along the line. I was wearing my overalls, my boots. And of course, I didn't walk back up because that wouldn't have worked. So he picked me up at the local bar at the bottom of the hill in Scotts Valley. So I do have some fun along the way. But this is my place where now I can have that control over my life in a way that's not controlling to anybody else. I can't make anybody else happy. I can't make anybody else upset. All I can do is be my best self and show up and let people be their best self as well. So that's what I want to do. Through the next system, it allows you, and we all know a wellness wheel, so this wasn't the meat of it, but I was able to step back from my life, and instead of nitpicking it, I came to this conclusion that my life is art. I want to create beautiful moments. I want to create beautiful interactions. I want to create beautiful events on our property, and I want all the people in my life to be able to benefit from it. This was my vision board I made in 2020 before I left my role, my full-time role. And I didn't even realize at the time, it is all about connection to my family, to my 4 kids, to my husband, to my little girl self, to worthiness. And I want to encourage all of you to create a vision board, not a vision board of the size of the house or the Corvette or the material possessions, because I promise you that's not what's going to give you happiness. What's going to give you happiness is finding that unworthiness in yourself, because you can get praise from everybody in this room. You could get praise from everybody in your organization, and you will never feel worthy until you alone feel worthy in yourself. Nobody else is going to give you worthiness. No one else is going to give you enough praise to fill that hole if you don't love yourself unconditionally. And if I have one wish for each of you, is that you can get to that place where you love yourself unconditionally, no matter what, and that you are whole. So, of course, connection is important in all of this. And when I connect wholeheartedly to myself, I can connect wholeheartedly to other people. Now, I'm not talking about just LinkedIn connections here. I'm talking about real connections, and I want to share a connection I have with this beautiful woman, Jessica Grossmeyer. While I was out on that hillside doing what I do on the hillside, she was taking a sabbatical, diving into the research, and finding herself in a rabbit hole on spirituality. I would love every one of you to get her book, and this is where our worlds come together in parallel. This is a quote from her book. About 2 years ago into my journey, I realized I'd been looking in the wrong places to find fulfillment and rekindle my joy in life. When I dug deeply into what gave me hope and joy and meaning, it came down to rediscovering my purpose in life, asking myself what my values were, and if and how I was living them out in my daily life. We were on the same path. She was diving into the research. I was diving into nature, but we came to such similar conclusions. I want to encourage you to get her book and specifically pay attention to chapters 4, 5, and 6. Chapter 4 is creating a culture of individual purpose. Let's help others rise above the line and find that purpose. The culture of connection and belonging, so important. And that culture of transcendence where we feel one with the universe. I want all of you to feel how it feels to be in your top 3 places. And I want you to join me in building communities that can live and be above the line. All of you, I want to be able to keep doing what you're doing. Laura, Lana, Mitch, Noemi, Jess, all of you, keep doing what you're doing, filling your passion with what you do to help others in their wellness. Let's just do it above the line together. Ryan said the other day, dream about what we can accomplish together. Let's all dream about what we can accomplish together. We all came to this summit and we came here to elevate change. I believe we can do it as simply as being above the line, in rising up together, and this is my beloved Santa Cruz Mountains, that we can rise up and bring all of us together with us to this place of magic and beauty that can be exactly where you are, wherever you are. I have a vision what I dream is that each of you become this beautiful succulent. If you come to my property, I love succulents. And imagine each of us building a community of like-minded people. You find your favorite succulent, I don't even care what it is or what it looks like. You help yourself thrive and pick the people around you that are going to be part of that community that you want. Imagination is the beginning of creation. I spent a lot of time creating beauty on the property, and a lot of it was about the relationships that I built, which were incredible to me. In looking above the line, I will also share one other thing. For any of you that are type A folks, type A personalities, that may be afraid that if you don't have that hunger anymore, if you don't have that unsettledness, if you don't have that sort of rage inside of you, that you will not be successful, I'm here to tell you it's absolutely not true. My husband and I, over the last 2 years, this is us in our wedding business, we have built a wedding business. We have no business building a wedding business. Neither one of us have any background. But I didn't have a background in fitness when I built my first company. And he has a data thing. What I will tell you is whatever company he and I have ever built, he had a software company, now a data company, now a wedding business. I don't know how it happens, except it sounded fun. But I will tell you that every time we've been successful, it's not because we knew the details of the business. It's because we knew how to treat our clients, and we figured it out because we listened to them. I will leave you with that I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. When you can stay above the line, you will make people feel amazing because your ego will be left behind and you will be able to live your very best life. Again, you all have a gift certificate. I hope you will join me on this little journey. It's a free 90-minute class, and that you will consider learning about neuroliteracy so that we can all rise together. There is a piece of paper on each of your on the tables with the code on it. Please take it. You will get some information about it. Again, it's a free class. I begged them. Just said, hey, we just need to, if we're going to do this and we're going to do this well, everybody needs to have access to this. And so I want to leave you. My soul honors your soul. Actually, I'm going to go back. I know I'm going a minute over, but I'm going to do this. Would you stand up and turn to someone? Just go ahead and stand up. Stand with somebody. And I want you to look in their eyes. Okay, I know, this is going to be tough. Okay, shh. I want you to just quietly look in their eyes while I read this. My soul honors your soul. I honor the place in you where the entire universe resides. I honor the light, love, truth, beauty, and peace within you, because it is also within me. In sharing these things, we are united. We are the same. We are one. Thank you.
Wow, everyone, please, Patty, the beautiful Patty Purpur de Vries.